Hello, Tim here. Welcome to my channel. In this episode, I'm going to tell you about a couple of my blade encounters that I've had, and this continues to be a ongoing reminder to me of what can happen, what has happened, and what has happened to other people. I want to give you a heads up on a couple of graphic images I'm going to show you. I don't want to be overly dramatic about any of this. It's just more of a point of interest and safety regarding working around tools. Woodworking is just a great occupation and a great hobby, but it is dangerous. And if if one gets too familiar, gets complacent, it takes unnecessary risks doing some things. And I've had to just not watch some stuff because I just think even though they get away with it, they don't always get away with it. I've not met anybody that, if they work with wood and working with tools, gets injured from time to time. And even in ancient times, it's talked about in the Bible, in the book of Ecclesiastes. It says, he who quarries stones is hurt by them. And he who splits logs is endangered by them. If the iron is blunt and one does not sharpen the edge, he must put forth more strength. But wisdom will help one to succeed. So wisdom is the key. And I'm going to talk about my first really bad accident, which happened on a saw that looked like this here. This is an antique treadle jigsaw. And the blade goes up and down as you press the pedal. That flywheel continues the motion, and the force continues on while you drive it. And I was cutting out something. I happened to be working on a historic site, making a reproduction tool. I don't remember exactly what it was I was cutting, but the wood caught on the blade and started slapping down. I put my hand down on it, but the blade kept coming forward and caught my thumb. I was not really paying attention to how that machine, I wasn't that familiar with it. And of course, being as old as it was, didn't have instructions with it. I went to the ER and they took care of me there, and it was my first experience of having a bad cut like that. Most of my finger and hand injuries, though, happen with whittling knives, chisels, different things that sent me to the ER to be stitched up. And one time, even a dried glue bead cut pretty bad into my hand when I was lifting taking the clamps off or something. So what did I learn? I guess, pay attention to what you're doing. Use gloves if you're handling material that's sharp or has sharp edges. Be generally aware of where your tool edges are while you're working with them. If you're handing a tool off to somebody, make sure they grab the handle first. If you're setting them down, know where they are and get in the habit so you look before you just reach into something and cut your fingers up. But it's usually the edge tools, utility knives, things like that have caused me the most trouble. And sometimes it's just that I'm pushing a dull tool. And I've learned that I don't put my tools away. If I drop them or something like that, I sharpen them right away. So I put them away sharp. That's what has caused the most trouble for me is those kind of edge tools. My most serious finger injury happened in 1991. So the job was, I was working a table saw, and I was raising the blade up through the board. I don't remember exactly what the project was, but I know I was under time pressure to get something done for a customer. And the blade was smoking, and I was about to launch a really bad kickback. So I was trying to hold the board down while I was reaching for the switch, and my fingers grazed the blade. I managed to get it cut off, but once it grazed these fingers, these three here, it pulled it into the blade. And before the saw would stop. A major mistake, and I realized that. but it's too late. I mean, this middle finger just dropped. It was still attached below, but these 3 fingers got clipped. And I'm going to show you the picture of what that looked like about a week after the accident. So that's my hand about a week after it got sewed up, and I took a picture of it once I had to change the dressing. It looked worse than that, right after the accident, of course. So what happened is that my finger dropped and I knew I was in trouble. I got a loaf pan, bread pan or meat loaf, whatever, filled it with ice and packed it. And that ice made it feel really good. So I was feeling like, okay, I can deal with this. This is okay. It's not a problem. So I ended up going to one emergency room and they said, this is way too serious. We can't deal with this here. So I ended up having to go to another bigger hospital and sitting in there waiting. And I was thinking, okay, I won't do this again. I'm sorry, I won't do it. I just can't. Can we just bandage it up? Well, no, the tendons were cut, and a very skilled surgeon had to put that finger in a tourniquet, pull the tendons out, and suture them. And it healed up pretty good. I mean, this is what my hand looks like 32 years later. Now this finger is bent over. It's hard for me to snap my fingers anymore. And sometimes I've actually learned to play guitar with these 3 fingers. And I used to play with 2 finger picks, and now I use 3. And I can't straighten this finger out anymore. I can push it straight. And it's a little bit, I can massage it sometimes and I can close it up. It's hard for me to, if I knock on a door with my right hand, I got to use this knuckle here. Some things I've had to change, but I got a pretty good grip and I'm glad to have it. It does stay out of my way. I've seen a neighbor of mine cut his finger off and it didn't, same kind of accident. It didn't reattach or thrive or whatever they call it. And so it didn't heal and they had to remove it. And sometimes it almost would, if it was much stiffer than this, it would be in the way. And I'm grateful that for the surgeon that fixed this up. I couldn't bend it. I had to have these all what they call buddying them up. I had to have them in a cast kind of thing to keep it straight so it would heal. But at some point, because there's bone loss here, I had to just deal with it the way it is. And I can feel a storm coming on, what it feels like with barometric pressure change. I get a little achy there. But other than that, I don't really notice it anymore. It's been a reminder, continual reminder. And bear in mind, this is all before SawStop was invented. And it certainly would have prevented those injuries that I had. But I didn't know about it until years later, and so wisdom would tell you to make that investment, get a SawStop if you're able to. I continually remind myself of what can happen, and I notice my hand and different scars on there, just to pay attention. Keep your hands away from the blades. I'm not telling you anything. A lot of people are afraid of table saws, and you shouldn't be. But they have one job, and that's just to cut stuff, and it doesn't matter what it is. The SawStop, however, has got that feature that will sense your fingers or flesh or hot dog or wet wood, and it'll fire off and not cut. If I don't have one, and what I do now as a wood carver, I don't need my table saw like I once did. I use it very, very little, and my goal in my retirement years is to eventually get rid of it and not use it at all. I use the bandsaw as much as anything and still use my chop saw. And the thing to keep in mind with finger injuries and safety, the SawStop is a wonderful idea, but it's only on one machine. And there's so many other things you can get hurt with and pinched and whatever, the lathe, drill press, of course the bandsaw and other power tools, hand tools. And it's just a matter of taking your time and thinking through your procedure and what's going to happen if this slips, and when you're carving, when you're using your hand as your primary resistance force, knowing where that blade is going to go if it slips. And I've talked about that in some of my whittling videos and what that means as far as protecting, wearing maybe a finger guard or something like that. So to wrap it up, keeping your tools sharp and keeping your fingers out of the way and using some common sense and whatever works for you to keep reminding. I think the best for working with those sharp knives and chisels that I work with, the best safety equipment is between my ears. And just think through what you're going to do. And I also sometimes reread that poem out. And that's kind of grim reminder of, okay, let's pay attention here. So, don't mean to be overly dramatic, but wish you all well, keep safe, and if you still have thumbs, give them a thumbs up. I'm just kidding. So that's my story, and thanks for watching. And please give it a thumbs up if you would, and please subscribe, and we'll see you next time.